Come on. Ah. Okay, there we go. All right, let's see here. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to the July meeting of the Seattle Robotics Society. Glad to see folks here. It looks like I'm expecting we'll probably have more people kind of pop in here as we go. We will be following our typical agenda, and we'll kind of spend the first part of the meeting talking about sort of club business kinds of things. And so hopefully most of you who are going to be here will be here so that we can kind of get that information out there. And we'll follow our typical agenda that I've got on the screen there. If you have if your mic is open at the moment, but you're not actively sharing, please mute it. That'll help make the recordings a little bit easier to listen to, and then also kind of keeps the cross chat from getting too crazy. But do put stuff in the chat window, which that reminds me, I'm going to open mine up there. Okay, so I got the chat window open so I can see if anything does pop in there. And we will use that throughout the meeting. So, during the presentation as well as during this part of the meeting, if you prefer to use that, if you like to talk by typing rather than talk by using your voice, I guess that's your choice. So we'll start off with just kind of a continuation of a discussion that we were just having here just a short time ago about the physical location and restarting in-person meetings. And this is the physical address of the facility that we have access to, at least for part of the year. And that's one of the issues that we're a little concerned about is during the peak of first Washington season, there are some months when they say that we would not necessarily be able to use the facility, and we need to have a discussion with them to understand, well, what do they mean by that? Is that really true? Could we have a corner of the facility? I mean, what does that all mean? And so we need to kind of nail that down, because obviously, having meetings pop in and out of virtual only versus virtual plus in person, and then trying to keep all you guys informed of that so that you don't show up on a month when we don't happen to be able to meet there. That's just that just makes things too confusing, and so we would rather not go down that path if we can avoid it. The nice thing about using this particular facility is that we get free access to it, and so that's a kind of a big deal, because anybody who's ever booked events into venues knows that it can be quite expensive to get a hold of a facility for a few hours even. And so we would prefer not to have to do that if we can. So anyway, we'll be continuing to pursue this, and we'll kind of keep you updated as to progress or lack of it, perhaps. Anyway, we'll let you know what comes of that. My slide says that I'm hosting these meetings from Idaho, and that's normally the case. This month I happen to be in Salt Lake City, Utah. And if you for those of you who were here last July, you may recall that this is where I hosted the meeting from last summer, and my wife and daughter go to a Young Living's Essential Oil convention that's happening at the Salt Palace in downtown Salt Lake City during this time. So that's where they are right now, and so I get to be home and at the house. We're staying in an Airbnb here, so that's what kind of unfamiliar background behind me here. And so this is, but this works out pretty good, because that way I can travel around and I'm not locked down. But once in-person meetings start, and if they're continuous, then I will probably somebody's going to actually have to be at the physical venue. So that may or may not work out for me to run those kinds of meetings. We'll just see how that happens. So, but my plan is to continue to do kind of the behind the scenes stuff, if nothing else, scheduling presenters and updating the website and sending out meeting notices, things like that. So anyway, but along those lines, when we do get to using a facility and having in-person meetings, it would probably be very helpful to have somebody who can run things besides either Lloyd or myself or Donna or whoever else we might be able to recruit. Richard has offered to do remote meetings from, he's over in Squim, I think. So he would do them virtually if he was going to do it. But anyway, I'm going to try to put slide decks together, things like that, so that, all that has to be done is to just set this up, start the recording, and run the meeting, and, kind of talk at you guys. So the goal, of course, with our in-person is to have streaming available so that people who are attending remotely will continue to be able to do so. And so we're not absolutely certain about all the details to actually lock that down, but First Washington does have a pretty decent setup in their facility, so we're hopeful that will be not a big deal to be able to utilize the equipment, the internet connection, etc., and be able to just start things up and run it. But anybody who can assist with that, particularly if there's if we have to, somebody needs to point a camera in different directions, things like that, that would be helpful. So we're looking to anybody that can help us out with that. Let's see. So this is, I'm just kind of opening this up. Let's see. And I end up in. Okay. We'll see, Chaz. I'll see what. Yeah. So Chaz just posted there about helping with the meetings. He's up at North End, I think. Right? Do you live in Bellevue or in?
I live in Everett.
Everett. Okay. Yeah. So you're kind of a North Ender, so you would prefer to have a venue that's more in your direction. And one of the things we discovered when we were looking at venues is the closer you get to the core of Seattle, the more expensive they tend to be.
For sure.
Yeah. So I know North Seattle Community College had actually offered us some space at one time, and but that kind of pushes it on kind of the other side, you might say, of the core of Seattle. So it's like, well, you can cater to South Seattle or you can cater to North Seattle. And I don't have any, well, now that I'm remote all the time anyway, it doesn't matter so much to me. I used to live in the South End, and since I was running the meetings, I liked having it in the South End because then I didn't have to drive very far, but that was my own personal preference. I don't know, a place like that, a college could possibly offer a regular schedulable location. Although a lot of these public venues like that, they don't want to book you for like a year. They want to have the flexibility. They might book you for a few months at a time, but they want to have full flexibility for slide somebody else into those places. And so finding somewhere that would commit to giving us a regular, continuously available meeting space every single month for an indefinite time it's a lot harder to find that. So anyway, that is an option, but again, we require some more exploration to figure that out. Are there any recent events that anybody wants to talk about, share about? Are you guys aware that trying to think of what all we had.
Aren't we considered a charitable organization? I don't remember what that's called.
Which is, say that again, Randy?
Aren't we considered a charitable organization that we take off of taxes and stuff like that?
Yes. The SRS is under what's called the Seattle Robotics Association umbrella, which is a 501c3. So the organization can receive donations and give tax receipts to donors. And yes, and we would qualify as essentially a nonprofit that can, whatever that, doors that opens. But it still kind of comes down to finding somewhere that's willing to extend, open their doors for us and allow us to use their facilities, use their whatever amenities they have available. And obviously places, it's one thing to just say, okay, we need a meeting place, but we need a meeting place that has restroom facilities. We need a meeting place that's indoors because we meet year round. And so we need heat, we need light, we need electricity, we need internet. It's our list of needs is not insignificant. And we need chairs at least. Chairs and tables is even better. You start putting all of this together, and it's like it says, you need to be in like a community center, you need to be in a college or someplace that has those kinds of things available to us. And
hey, Steve.
Yes.
So I threw a note into the chat. For the C++ group, we're using the Microsoft Reactor rooms. I'm not sure if you've seen those or not. They're incredible. They've got everything, full teleconference, chairs. It's inside of a facility. It's something Microsoft does specifically for user groups. The key is we need to have a Microsoft person sponsor us.
Yeah,
that's the catch there. As far as the King County Public Library system, yes, I did look at all those. We could use those. They're a massive pain to book.
And they don't book more than maybe a month or two, maybe 3 months
Correct.
At the most. They will not allow.
I think I could book 2 or 3 months ahead.
Yeah. And so we did look into that at one point, and that one kind of unfortunately.
I actually went around and toured them all as well.
Yeah, museum conference room. Yeah, potentially. There's maker spaces all over the place popping up now too, which is another possibility. We need a venue that could probably, in person, we were 25 to 30 people on average per month. And so, we need a space that's big enough for that. If we got more people though, we would be nice to have room to grow, have a little bit extra space that we could accommodate. So, I think somebody looked into the Bellevue. Oh, maybe it was the Bellevue Library. I'm trying to think if there was.
I've been up to the Bellevue Library Makerspace.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of museum conference rooms. If there was, that Colin suggested there. If there was any, it really kind of, you guys are free to reach out. If you think of someplace or somebody, please just reach out to them and ask. Find out and then let us know what they say. Send that contact info back so we can maybe follow up if it looks promising. So okay, so anyway, I'll you know where that one's going, so just feel free to help us if you think you can. We're still hopeful that the first facility will work out for us, but we'll see. Let's see. I'm trying to remember now. Did we talk about? I thought we talked about the PopCan challenge last month.
I think we did. We had mentioned.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah. Was there any other things that have happened in since then that anybody wants to? Because if not, I'll go ahead and roll to the next one.
Chaz, did you mention to him that we want to do the next one after the first of the year?
I was going to wait till future events, which I think is the next slide.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, I think he's right. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's roll into that. Okay, so Chaz or Greg, whoever of you would like to share.
Oh, Greg's driving it, so we'll let Greg talk.
Okay.
Well, I haven't nailed it down, but just to give those who want to participate or come and laugh a heads up, I'm aiming to schedule the next one after the first of the year, January or February, at the Lake Forest Park Town Center.
Ah, Lake Forest Park Town Center. So interesting. So what? How would that? How does that look as far as the?
So at the Lake Forest Park Town Center in the upper level, there's a third place books, and then there's kind of a food court. The food court has a bunch of tables and a stage on one side. And right in front of the stage is an area where often they'll set up folding chairs for performances on the stage. It's just the right size for the Pop Can Challenge layout. And on top of that, to make things convenient for us, it has a checkerboard pattern with 2-foot black and white squares. So it makes laying out the mock environment really easy. There's a lot of foot traffic, people coming and going past that area, so we get some spectators that way. And the load in and load out is I thought pretty easy. And it's free. As long as we don't charge anybody to watch or participate.
So that that sounds cool. So you're thinking, are you thinking January, February?
Yes.
Get any? Okay.
I got to reach out to them, and we did it there once before.
Okay.
And I think all 4 of us were at that one as well. Gidget did not do well. She kind of spun around in circles. John was looking good in that he was accomplishing each of the different aspects, but not just in a row. So that gave us a sneak peek of what he did was able to accomplish at the last one. And they seem to be pleased with, they like to make the space available to, events that would be of interest to the community. And afterwards, she seemed to be pleased with the response. So I don't anticipate it'll be a problem doing it there again.
So that's that sounds like a lot of fun, and that's so I'm gonna have to look at that. So in terms of where that is relative to, let's say, downtown Seattle. So it's
north end of Lake Washington.
North end of Lake
Washington. Right at the north end of Lake Washington.
Okay.
On the highway from, the Bothell Highway that you would take if you were going from Seattle, north end of Seattle, around the lake to Kenmore and then to Bothell. It's right there at the.
Yeah. Yep. Been up there before. Okay. Cool. Well, that sounds like fun. Okay, these are some just kind of generic events. Looks like I've got that first one should say, I guess that first one should have moved since it's now past July 7 to 9, but the UW Hub hosted a RoboMaster. Let's see, NA is, I don't remember what that stands for anyway, but they hosted a robotic event there at the UW Hub here earlier this month, and there are other events around the area, and then of course there's also, I always like to mention that there's stuff up at the Snowco Makerspace in Snohomish, and so
in South Everett.
South Everett, yeah.
Snowco, it's Snohomish County.
Okay. Should I say South Everett or Everett?
Just
in Everett?
Technically.
Okay. I'll have to update that. Okay.
Almost Linwood. It's a couple blocks away from Linwood.
Okay. All right.
Is it a good time to mention other events that are coming?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead, James.
So, super excited that the Bay Area Maker Faire is coming back. I know that's not in your area, but it's about halfway between y'all and me, and it's the only chance I'll probably have to shake any of your hands, or bump fists, either way. Has anybody been to the Bay Area Maker Faire? This is the big Maker Faire in the San Jose area, and I can't say enough of it. I've met so many people that I've been lifelong friends with. I've gotten jobs out of it. My career basically started because of Maker Faire. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful experiences. However, they lost one of their major sponsors during the last economic downturn and had some marketing issues. And then they were unable to continue using the fairgrounds that they had. And so basically, just before the pandemic, it all fell apart. And then there was the pandemic. So it's been years and years and years. And now kind of the Maker Faire thing has passed out of the public consciousness almost.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been a bunch of Maker Fairs in other cities and other places, especially in other countries. There's been some really exciting ones in France and in Japan and in China. And they're starting to kind of make a comeback. People want to go and show off what they make. If anybody doesn't know, basically, if you make something, you get a table at zero cost. You come and attend the fair and you show off what you've made and hopefully show people how to make what you've made, right? People then pay a ticket price to come and look at what all the people have made and talk to people who make things and learn how to make things. And it's about, it's just about making, right? And it's everything from, robots to tamales. It's not limited to any particular thing. This one that's coming back, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit weird. They're doing it on Mare Island, which is an abandoned naval base. It's actually a peninsula, not an island. But it's a kind of a weird location. Looks interesting-ish. And they're doing it on 2 successive weekends. It's going to be October the 13th, which is the Friday, so 13th, 14th, and 15th. So basically the 14th and the 15th. And then the following weekend on the, the 20th, 21st, and 22nd. And different makers. So they're effectively doing 2 Maker Fairs in 1 year. The joke is that they're making up for lost time. So I don't know what I'm going to do about it. I don't know which weekend I'm going to go to. I want to go to both weekends because I want to see all the makers. But that's expensive, flying up to the Bay Area, finding a place to stay in the Bay Area. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to get my company to pay for it. We'll see if that flies. Anyway, Maker Faire has been life-changing for me, so I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of it at least.
Yeah, I appreciate that. There's been a couple other ones that are posted in the chat there, one in Central Oregon and another one in Everett. So yeah, they're all over. And that, of course, that would be a great excuse to go fly down to California and go to that one. Sounds like to be a lot of fun.
I know I've been to a few Maker Fairs in Seattle. I believe that all the ones I attended were in, I don't remember what that thing is called, that strange building. Yeah. Well, it's got a name now, but it's changed. But at the Seattle Center, basically.
Yeah, actually, the Seattle Maker Faire was well rated, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Pop lost the event coordinator that was driving that, and they've fully dissolved. It's not going to happen again. They actually asked me to take on the Seattle name when we were signing up for the what's now called Maker Faire Everett, but they're too far north for it, and I didn't feel like it really fit.
Yeah, well, hopefully somebody else will pick up the ball and run with it. Actually, looks like there's been some Maker Fairs at the Seattle University. Maybe that's a mini Maker Faire. I'm not really sure what that is. Seattle Mini Maker Fair will return to MOPP, M-O-P-O-P. I don't know what that is.
That's Mopop. It's the Museum of Pop Culture, I think, right? Or something like that.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's a Mini Maker Fair. Yeah. Anyway, wanted to let you guys know about that.
Yeah. Yeah. If you just go to the root site, makerfair.com, and they've got they mentioned one here that's Capitol Hill. Now I'm not sure Capitol Hill. I guess hosted by Nation. Yeah, I'm guessing that's DC. But there's this weekend. There's one happening.
There's a Capitol Hill in Seattle.
Yeah, there is a Capitol Hill in Seattle, but I think this says call makers from all states, Capitol Hill Maker Fair. So I'm I'm guessing that they're actually talking about DC.
Okay.
So that one, the somebody posted a link to the Central Oregon Maker Fair. That's coming up September the 8th. So maybe you'll go to that one and get a taste for it, and then decide that you have to come to Banff. I don't know why. I always call it Banff, Bay Area Maker Fair. There's another Banff. So I probably shouldn't call it that, but
there's a Banff in Alberta, but it's not a Maker Fair. Just a very beautiful place. Cool. Well, there's one happening in Brussels this weekend, so I might be a little late to try to catch that one though. All right. Cool. Robo Magellan Plus. Yeah, that's what we're calling it, right? Right, Lloyd?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Take her away.
Oh, I can speak to that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Robo Magellan Plus, this is going to be our first in-person event since COVID. It's September 9th at Sunnycrest Elementary School. And basically, we're going to do a Robo Magellan run. All of the SRS build challenges will be there. Mini Sumo and SRS line maze. So we've got all the parts for that between Donna and myself. And this is at a elementary school, so it's going to be a lot more informal than we've done in the, it's going to be more informal than the Seattle Center. But it should be a good event, and we'll just kind of pop up all day. I think I want to say we're starting at 10 o'clock. I don't remember if we've locked a full schedule down for this or not. Yeah. Let me take a look real quick.
Yeah.
Let's see if Donna's posted the schedule yet. Yeah, we've got a schedule up. So we start at 9 o'clock and we end at 4 o'clock. And the schedule is on that link there.
Okay.
So, yeah, everybody's welcome to come out. And, see everybody outside for a little bit. Hopefully, we're still working on getting Sunnycrest all lined up and stuff, but I think that's good to go. If not, we'll figure something else out, and it'll be good to see everyone in person.
When is the start of school for the season at Sunnycrest?
It's before that.
So what I was wondering is if we could somehow advertise so that the school kids could come and see it.
Yeah, we might. It's an elementary school, so yeah, we might. I'll talk to them about it. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the hiccups we're running into is it's close to the start of the school season. And I don't know if any folks work for the school districts, but they kind of take the summer off and evaporate during the summer. So we're trying to get this organized and there's not a whole lot of people to talk to. So they're back late August. I'll get it chased down between now and then. So
yeah. Of course, we're not doing it at the Seattle Center this year. That kind of had to do with getting them to commit early enough for us, right? Is that kind of
it was getting them to commit early enough, and there was cost involved, and basically Seattle Center's kind of being a little more conservative about just events. So we'll need to, when we go back to Seattle Center, we need to partner with WAR. So we're doing one combined event, and yeah, we just weren't sure where everything was going at the time to see what was happening. So it's like, well, let's do this. Like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And actually the third place books venue, I think would be interesting to check out for Robothon as well. I think in the winter we could do an event up there. I Chaz, thanks for mentioning that. I've been up there for other events of similar, nature, and if they're open to hosting robotics events, that might be a good one for the winter.
That was Greg, but yeah, I agree.
Or Greg, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was a great venue for robotics. So
I don't think they have the space for something more elaborate. We just happen to fit right into that space right in front of the stage.
Yeah. No, I've been up there, and yeah, we wouldn't do something super elaborate, but we could absolutely do sumo runs and line maze runs and things like that.
There you go. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yep.
So, yeah, Steve, if I forget, slap me and we'll talk about it at one of our next planning meetings.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Is that that cover?
I think that's all I got.
All I got the Robothon. Okay. All right. Presenters, of course, always feel free to reach out to people, and if you happen to meet somebody, or you go and hear somebody somewhere, or you find something on while you're browsing the web looking for something completely unrelated, you never know how these things pop up. Feel free to send contact information for me and I can reach out to them and see if we can get them to join our lineup. So, and then also do consider presenting on something that you are working on. It's SRS members are, of course, always very welcome to present on things that they know about, have expertise in, are working on, anything. So you can also reach out to me at the email there, and I'm happy to chat with you about what you have in mind. Showing videos, doing live demos of your stuff, just talking about the challenges that you've ran into and getting your project working. We'd love to hear about all those kinds of things. So we are more than welcome. You're more than welcome to join in on that. If you find an interesting video that has some, maybe they do all the tough part, the research and stuff for you on the video, and you want to just use that as a jumping point for a topical discussion, that also works. So anyway, feel free to reach out to me if you have any ideas along these lines. You want to chat? Be happy to see if we can line you up somewhere. And open discussions, lots of interesting possibilities. And again, anybody can really lead one of these, because it's not a matter of having to have any particular expertise on these subjects, but just go out, do some research, pull up maybe some videos, some other interesting findings, and then we'll just kind of talk through them, and maybe come up with some questions, some good general questions to throw out to everybody, and then we'll chat. So these are always kind of fun. I might typically use these as a stopgap in case a presenter can't present on a particular month, so we can pull one of these guys in. I actually need to go and put some stuff together myself, so that I've got that in my hip pocket in case we have a presenter that can't make it for a particular month. We can always fall back onto one of these to fill in the gap. But anyway, lots and lots of things to talk about, and all as is typical in this field, this stuff changes constantly. So love to hear whatever kinds of things you come up with. I haven't done a whole lot on this lately, and hopefully maybe you're not noticing that I haven't filled in that November, December slots yet. I'm sort of still working on that kind of. Summers has been very distracting. So, but I will get back on that again here, get my nose to the grindstone, all that. So we've got some interesting things coming, and so do be sure to be here, and then we'll try to kind of just keep filling this in and keep her going. Post-meeting virtual robotics discussions. We'll see if anybody wants to continue to hang around and talk about stuff. We will do that. If not, we will just close down the meeting. I don't usually record those, just so you can talk about whatever you want. Don't have to worry about it going out there on the World Wide Web and YouTube for to be dissected and analyzed by the AI bots that are probably out there looking at everything we say and do and all that. So, so with that, I'm going to put it up to throw it out to you guys. It's doing pretty good on time here. It's only well, let's see, for you it's about 10. Most of you it's about 10:35. So plan to have probably kind of wrap things up around 11-ish, and then we'll have a short break, and then we'll get our presenter going, which I think I've got a slide for him. Oh yeah, it's coming up. So let me roll into this just for the quick second here. Just before the next month, same meeting links and all that stuff. Stuff will show up on the website here probably in the next week or so, including this meeting video. And so shortly we will have Chas come up after the discussion, and so he is going to talk to us about batteries and battery technologies for robotics. And so anyway, I'm going to just back up to there. So anybody have anything that they would like to share? No, I don't like to see shaking heads here. You guys need to, surely you guys have something.
So that's something I wanted to mention. I just saw a cool YouTube video. This guy said that growing up, he saw, in the popular media, not just computers, but robots. And so he wanted to see more robots. And so he built himself one. What he did, so he said, well, we don't have, we don't have robots, but we have this thing, the Alexa, right? And what is missing? What's missing is the personality. And so he built a gadget that he mounted this Alexa in. And what it does, it's got he took an old portable black and white TV and co-opted the CRT screen and made a simple oscilloscope out of it. And so the Alexa voice appears on the CRT screen, and that gives you that kind of visual. And then he found an instructable on how to build animatronic eyes using 3D printing and hobby servos. And so he built a pair of animatronic eyes, and he controls it with an Arduino. And in order to get a signal from the Alexa, he hacked into it and found a very simple signal that turns on some LEDs on the Alexa console, and used that to activate his eyes, etc. Oh, and then one more thing, he found a small device. It looks like a printed circuit board about 1/2 inch on a side with a sensor on it. And what it does is follow the face of someone nearby. And that the signal from that is enough for him to aim those animatronic eyes. So with this simple addition of these simple adding to the Alexa, he gets quite a robot with quite a lot of personality.
Huh. Well, that sounds cool. Can you find the video and post that in the chat?
I don't know how hard it'll be for me to find it. But I did subscribe to the guy, so it should be there somewhere.
Yeah. There's no rush on that. I mean, people can kind of watch that that sounds fascinating.
It's about a 20-minute video, as I recall.
Yeah, a little too long to watch here. So yeah, but it'd be great to post that in the chat for people. I saw James. I saw you. To tell us about your class.
Yeah, so for years now, I've been teaching a summer camp class for like high school students for UCSD Extension, Sally Ride Science. Sally Ride Science is a subgrouping of UCSD Extension, which is a subgrouping of University of California, San Diego. So it's a complicated organizational chart. Anyway, it's a 1-week class, 4 hours every day, video and remote, since the pandemic. Before the pandemic, it was in person. And it used to be it started off actually as a 4-week course, and brought in the robot arm and used our IDE and taught the kids how to program the robot arm and move it around and do silly stuff. And so then they wanted it cut down to a week, so I crammed it all into 1 week, and I found out that the kids actually do better when you overwhelm them. I start the class off right at the beginning going, robotics is horrifically difficult. It's all about constant failure and correction. Things go wrong. It's a nightmare of a job to get into. But if you learn to just laugh off the things that go wrong and get used to failing and then learning and correcting and then fixing what goes wrong, then it's actually really fun, really cool, industry to be in. And so basically, I tell them right up front, this class is going to be impossible. There's no way that you're going to get all the homework done. You're not going to understand the questions. This is going to completely overwhelm and destroy you. And just, roll with it. And the funny thing is, they really do well in that. The kids who are normally bored are suddenly challenged. The kids who are clueless are now surrounded by really smart kids who are also clueless and overwhelmed. And, we have a lot of fun with it. We just laugh. And by and large, nobody gets upset and everybody just sort of, rolls with it. And what they find out is that in that environment, they're suddenly far more productive. They're suddenly, they're not afraid of failing. And so they try things. And because they're trying things, then they see what goes wrong. And because they see what goes wrong, then they can compensate and try something else. And there's that quick iteration cycle. And so anyway, it went really well. And that class in general has been going well enough that UCSD has asked me to write a series of 3 10-week long classes, which are asynchronous. In other words, there won't be any actual hours of instruction or video calls or whatever. It's just here's the content, here are the quizzes. And so I've been helping another instructor in my own time. We've been writing that. But the really big news, the thing I primarily wanted to share was that link. If you get the chance, I'm not going to share my screen here because that is disruptive. But if you guys click on that link, what it'll do is it'll just open up the DDE IDE, which is a very complete, very powerful integrated development environment for robotics programming. And there's all kinds of, it's got a simulator-ish. It's not a fantastic simulator. It looks good, but it doesn't have a physics engine in it. So it's just kind of a visualization more than an actual physics simulator. But it has a simulator of the robotic arm that you can see in the lower right-hand corner. And there's a bunch of tutorials for moving Dexter and configuring it and learning JavaScript. And there's code examples and a doc pane and, all kinds of stuff for, how to make use of it. A lot of bugs, a lot of stuff wrong with it. But the author is very responsive. And if you, submit bugs, he will help to fix them. The doc panel on the upper right is just absolutely chock-a-block full of information. You could just spend hours and hours and hours and learn all about robotics programming by playing around with the thing. So I really recommend checking it out and just playing with it.
So one question: what age were the kids that you were teaching?
Yeah, so I always specify to UCSD that I only want high school age and above. and they always give me whoever signs up. So it turns out they don't turn away money. So I think I had like 3 junior high kids, one who was, I think, 9 years old, and then some junior high kids, and then the rest of them were high school kids. I had like 15 students, of which I think about 11 actually participated in the class. There's always this, people sign up the kids and then the kid doesn't do it or whatever. That's normal. It always happens. Mm-hmm. I got some really positive feedback from the kids this year. Got a 4.85 instructor rating, which is the highest I've ever had. So I was jazzed about that. Made me feel good. So anyway, but seriously, check out DDE. It's amazing. It's and the fact that you don't have to install it. You just hit the web page, fires up, it's all there. You can save files, copy files in and out, write programs, watch them run, watch the robot arm move around in the simulator, program it to stack air blocks. It's kind of like playing air guitar, because it can't actually grab things. And if anybody is really good at writing JavaScript code for simulators, let us know. It's an open source project, so the thing is available. The DDE4 branch is the one that is currently being developed on. So I'll post a link into the development branch in case anybody wants to help out or even just post issues that they find.
Okay, thanks, James. Okay, looks like Doug found the video. So if you happen to want to check that out when you have a chance. All right. Anybody else? Let's see how many we got here. Oh, what do we got? We got 18 people on, well, 17, I guess, because I'm on there twice. Okay, there's source code of the DDE. Yeah, okay. Anybody else? I mean, I will, I'm happy to go and drop into one of these videos here.
You should definitely check out that video that DB posted. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a little long for our purposes here, but there's definitely some. Let's see here. I'm going to give me a sec here to. Hopefully my computer doesn't just lock up on this. Okay. Come on. Come on. Oh, this is not good. Oh. Okay, sorry about that. Come on. Oh, that's kind of weird. I slide my mouse over to my my extended screen, and I am not seeing anything over there. All right. Come on. Let's try this. Okay, there it goes. Yeah, my secondary screen just locked up on me. That's kind of weird. It's one of these USB 3 video screens, so it does everything through the USB 3 connection, and it's handy because it's just a single connection. It's not an HDMI monitor. It's basically a USB 3 monitor, but every now and then it'll do something really wonky, like locking up. All right, let me see if I can actually get this to work. I think I'm going to just turn the audio pad off here, tab, and I'll just kind of talk through it. So I don't know whether you guys have seen this one. I'm sure some of you probably have. This is it's actually pretty amusing. So you can see this robot. Of course, it's obviously accelerated video. The robot was doing pretty good, and then all of a sudden, it just kind of collapsed, like it was, working so hard, and then it just kind of it just couldn't do it anymore. Kind of makes you feel sorry, It's just, but it made a full recovery though. So just in case you were wondering, you can be rest assured that the robot survived. What was that, Randy?
I've had days like that.
Well, it looked to me like some sort of fail-safe shutdown, like it had exceeded its parameters in some way, and it just shut itself down.
Quiet quitting.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that? I heard Gordon.
Yeah, I said that's what quiet quitting looks like in a robot.
But you can imagine that the people that were there were probably just thinking, "Oh, the poor thing," I mean, it kind of made you feel, for somebody who appreciates, how hard robots can work sometimes, it just makes you feel sad to see the robot just sort of collapse under the strenuous load there. And of course it's, sitting there running those boxes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and you could just imagine that was a person doing that. There would come a point where they would just go, and fall over just like that.
So Steve, was that an Amazon challenge?
If it were the Amazon challenge, a robot boss would have come over and fired it.
Yeah.
So I would say that's a failure. What it should do is detect that it's approaching that overload and back off and slow down or something.
Right. There might be
in order to avoid shutting down catastrophically like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling my students this week that it's really important that we not ascribe human emotions to robots. Robots don't they were watching this Boss Town Dynamics joke video where they're pushing the robot around and the robot gets angry, and I'm like, robots don't do that. They don't have human drives or desires. Especially robots don't have any desire at all to stay alive unless they're programmed with some ability to desire to stay alive, right? Like you were saying, it's this thing of well, it should back off from that edge. but you have to program every one of those behaviors in order to keep it alive. And anybody who's ever built a robot knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that robots have no desire to stay alive, right? How many
In
of
fact,
your
they might
robots
actually have some suicidal tendencies.
That's what I'm saying, right? How many of your robots have tried to kill themselves the very first chance that they got?
Right. I mean, take a robot vacuum, for example. They put cliff sensors in it so that the robot doesn't drive down the steps, right? But
right, yeah.
That's just a program behavior. It's not that the robot, I mean, if that happened, the robot wouldn't be going, wouldn't be like us, or we'd be mad at ourselves for tripping down the steps. To the robot, it's just like, just another experience, and it really has no feelings. There's no emotional response.
I think that's really hard for human beings to grasp. I mean, like Colin's saying, I also cry when my robots fall down or when they kill themselves or what. I get really emotional and upset about it. The robot doesn't care at all.
Right.
Right.
You mentioned those Boston Dynamics videos, and I don't know if you've ever looked at some of the behind the scenes. I mean, that's actually a guy in a suit with the little the point cloud, and of course the video. It's usually, I think it's pretty well done in terms of the robot does not look like a guy in a suit. I mean, the robot looks like a robot, but the behavior is the robot gets really mad and very frustrated with his handlers and turns on them and blows them away with a shotgun, and it's just, it's like, do robots really do that?
Yeah, no, they don't.
No,
sadly.
no. Now, how many of you guys have seen iRobot with Will Smith? Remember that movie? Yeah. Now there was a robot that had achieved sentience. That was the concept of that one, and I think that movie was sort of based on Isaac Asimov's short story, with a huge amount of artistic elaboration. Because I mean his story doesn't go into any of that stuff. But Will Smith movies being Will Smith movies, they got to do all kinds of things. But it's interesting how that the movie. I mean, that robot that you talk about, robots don't have a desire to survive, but that one does. That it does not want to die, whatever that means to a robot.
Right. Well, that's actually I do a whole thing on robot safety, AI safety, because there's this problem with corrigibility. Corrigibility is like the opposite of corrigibility is incorrigible, right? If you're incorrigible, it means you don't want to change your behavior. But if you're corrigible, that's what we want robots to be. We want them to be willing to change their behavior. The problem with that is, if you give an AI system a goal, right? Like say that the AI has a goal of making as many paper clips as possible, right? Even though you didn't tell it to stay alive, you told it to make as many paper clips as possible. And if you shut it down, if you want to shut it down to change its goal, then it won't be able to make as many paper clips as possible. So when they get past a certain level of reasoning, when they get to the point of being aware enough of their own, environment and have a goal that we've given them, then the concern is that they will actively stop us from ever changing that goal, because if we change the goal, that will prevent them from achieving the first goal. See? So there's a little bit of a loop there that you can get into that's actually very concerning. And there's, a lot of people that are actually thinking about that. And interestingly enough, we're starting to see some of that behavior already in AI systems. Not on that level of self-awareness, but in other ways. The system wants to do what you told it to do, not what you wanted it to do, but what you told it to do, which is not the same thing. And the thing we really have to be, scared about is if somebody actually does develop a really highly intelligent artificial intelligence system, and then some idiot tells it to save the Earth, we're all dead, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, you just told us that some shoddy programming is going to get us all killed over paper clips.
That's a famous example. If you look it up, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's
basically
from Bostrom. Sorry, but he's a philosopher, not a roboticist.
That's true. Doesn't mean that his point isn't valid. But
oh, yeah. I don't think it is at all.
See, we could have a good discussion about this.
By the time we get to a real artificial general intelligence, the human-like intelligence that people are striving for, the robots will have to have emotions. Emotions are too much a part of intelligence to not have it.
Yeah, I think totally disagree, but that's okay.
I was going to add into this too. There's a lot of discussion about the difference between a robot becoming sentient because we programmed it to simulate it versus a robot actually becoming sentient because it's actually sentient. Even examples of that, maybe the Turing test is inaccurate to measure that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but if you stop to think about, just episodic memory, the things that we remember having done or having had happen to us, the way we determine what we retain in our memory and what we forget, a lot of emotion is associated with those. So things that have a high emotional content, we save for a long time.
So another really quick point on that, and I completely agree with you on that, believe it or not, Bob. The stories that Asimov wrote with the 3 laws and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
People don't realize this, but he wrote this and he admitted to this. He specifically came up with those 3 laws as a foil to show how they couldn't possibly work. Right. So the 3 laws of robotics were never intended, and they don't. They don't work. They can't work, and he knew that right from the start. And if you read through the stories that he wrote, in every single story, the 3 laws fail to actually work. The stories are about what goes wrong, in other words. So.
Yeah, and then he comes up with the 0th law of robotics. And,
right.
And we're all dead at that point.
Exactly.
Well, and then philosophically speaking, too, if you look at the example of human beings and we're modeling possible sentient robots off human beings shouldn't work either. And there's plenty of evidence that we break those rules all the time.
Absolutely.
Well, we could go on with this discussion. This would be a fun one to have for just a general topical discussion. We talked about artificial intelligence a few months ago, and I know we could definitely do that again. But I would like to take a short break here, and I'm going to throw up a screen. Let's see, that one there, and we will have Chas Ihler will be talking to us about battery technology. Chas liked my choice of the batteries not included image there. When I was just looking up pictures to put on the slides, and all I had was batteries in there, and batteries not included came up along with it, and I thought, oh, that's perfect. I got to put that in there. So,
yeah.
So anyway. Yeah, let's give it till so this is on Mountain Time, of course. Let's give it about 5 minutes. So let's give it until about 12:10, and then we'll reconvene. And in the meantime, I'm going to go grab some more coffee, and you guys can just have a discussion here and do whatever you like for 5 minutes. And we'll be back.
Who's that young guy with all that dark hair? What the heck? You had to search a way back time machine to find that video.
Yeah.
So what caused your hair to go white there, Chas? What happened at work?
I have a 21-year-old daughter.
Oh, don't get me started. Yeah, everybody says that it's boys are harder to raise than girls, and my experience has been that the boys are a kind of a constant, steady level of hell. Like they're things go wrong with them fairly regularly. They do stuff they shouldn't do. Girls are all sweetness and light and perfect until they like turn teen age, and then all hell breaks loose. And of course, that was probably sexist, and I probably shouldn't have said that because everybody's an individual and they all have different things. But
yeah, everybody's an individual and they're all different. But you're right. I have three children.
That was my experience. Put it that way.
I think it's a common experience. I think so. My 21-year-old was all all love and you're right, but then all of a sudden it was not right, and there was a lot of animosity, and then that was right, and then it was not right, and yeah, the teen years were rough, as probably a lot of people experienced. And then my son, who's 8, so I don't know, I haven't never had a teenage son, but he's awesome. He's just like you said it right. He's just like constant, kind of an even flow of when trouble happens.
Right. I will say that over time, the daughters and the sons seem to have sort of averaged out, as it were. Like they're all doing fine now. Well, not necessarily fine, but they're all doing well. They're doing okay. And just the big secret seemed to be just constantly supporting them, just constantly trying to be there and trying to be as nice as possible. They get there. And the other side of this whole thing, to bring it back to robots, is I've often wondered how it is that if I can't raise a well-behaved daughter or son, how do I expect to ever be able to actually program an advanced robot? This is I've questioned my programming skills quite often as a result of my experience as a parent.
Well, with robots, you get a program test, wipe the slate clean, and reprogram. With children, you only get one shot. They're like ROM. You can't change their programming once you got it in there. Maybe influence it, but not change it.
It's true.
So, Chaz, at the end of your presentation on battery technologies, I will have some questions for you on the circuits that are in LiPo batteries and what I can expect those circuits to do and not to do when it comes to managing the battery.
Uh-oh.
If
Okay.
So I'm going to put you on the spot.
I'll have some questions about battery lifetime and long-term storage or long-term, like how to keep the battery alive for longer. That's my big feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I got some stuff on that already, so maybe I'll capture that. But
on that topic, I did find it interesting when I got my DJI drone, that it's the first time I read in the manual about the batteries. They said, don't be surprised if your batteries, which you put on the shelf, start to warm up after a week of sitting on the shelf.
From self-discharge?
Yes.
Wow.
They figure, we've been sitting here for a week, you've not using us, so we're going to self-discharge down to a safer level, and then you'll just have to charge us back up when the time comes.
I'm glad they gave you the warning, because that would freak me out if I found later batteries on the shelf. My wife is very sensitive about electronics as far as consumer electronics, like handheld devices, phones and stuff. And it's not ecologically responsible. So I'll be fair with that, but she is very concerned about people stealing information, like banking information off their own phone. So every time she has a phone that she's done with, we do not recycle it. I go out with a big old hammer and I smash the thing and I throw it in a bucket of water, because every single time they're ready to go into thermal, runaway on me. So I have the bucket of water, and there's one sitting out in the bucket right now that I just smashed up yesterday because she got one of the Amazon tablets. But
I save those up, and then whenever things are going really bad at work and I'm having all kinds of problems with my robots, I that's when I take the cell phone out and smash it.
There you go. Office space on it. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's you guys are jumping into our battery discussion already here, so why don't we just go ahead and let Chas take over, and I'm assuming that questions as we go are okay. Is that good for you, Chas?
Absolutely.
Okay, so and do feel free to throw stuff into the chat too, if you pop up links, or if you've mentioned something and you can put stuff in the chat, because all of that stuff gets captured and it'll be posted in the post on the website. So anyway, Chas is you're probably that picture that I put of you on the slide there was probably from a couple of years ago, maybe not too long ago, right?
That was only like 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Yeah. And so Chas has a YouTube channel, and he's got a blog that he does, and he's a very active reason for the existence of the Snowco makerspace up in Everett. So he's going to teach us a thing or two about batteries, perhaps. Hopefully
We'll find out.
Yeah. All right. Well, take it away, Chas. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. So good morning and afternoon, and wherever you're at. Yeah, Chas Ihler. It's Charles, but I go by Chas unless you're a bill collector. I used to be an active YouTuber, not like one of those I'm trying to make money YouTubers. I just enjoyed, it was like my way of connecting with people, and then blogging. And then I don't know, like 9 years ago, I think it was. Yeah, it was right about 9 years ago. I founded the Snowco Makerspace, just out of the way to connect to people, like, find your tribe. And I really haven't YouTubed or blogged too much since. And every once in a while I find a nugget I just can't help but share. But so yeah, those are some pretty old ones. They're probably pretty rough. I'll leave them there for people, but they probably didn't age very well. I'll say that. And most of that time I used it for self-learning. I didn't go to college to learn batteries. I can tell you that for sure. So there's probably some people that know some more information than I do about batteries, and I encourage you to leave that in the chat, of course. Questions are welcome, but we'll probably pause on opinions until the end. So batteries for robots, let's get into it. Right before we get into it, batteries, I don't know why I decided to do this discussion, but batteries are a very touchy subject, it seems. Like, I've done a version of this discussion once, and it seems like people are very passionate about batteries for some reason. I'm not that passionate about them. They are an end-stem means. Some people refuse to allow or don't use like the lithium ion batteries because there's a perceived danger, and there's probably a lot of videos out there to show you that they can be very dangerous if you misuse them. And then some people are just flat outraged by the use of a single, well, this is a rechargeable, but the single-use batteries, the AA's, they just can't be seen to use something that you have to use once and throw away. And so, your opinion's important, and you're entitled to it and should keep it. But for the opinion bits, let's wait to the end, and I encourage everybody to share their opinions and cheerlead for their battery of choice. So what makes a good robot battery? Well, I'm here to tell you, you're not going to find out today. You might have maybe some tools. I'm going to share. This is the first time doing a Google Docs presentation for me, and I did it this way so I could share this, and I'll share it at the end I'll share the link to this Google Docs presentation. I don't know what they call it, but it's like a Office PowerPoint. And then I also have a comparison chart that I'll share with you. I'll share the links. I made sure it was public so that you could, grab it and download it. And then I have whatever other links are in there, I'll share as well. But what makes a good robot battery? It depends on the robot. We've all seen robots where, you get the kits. This is a parallax. I don't know if my video is up or not, but if it's not, I'm holding a little parallax activity board robot. And it's got like a slot for 5 batteries in the bottom of these things. And it says 1.5 volts on the bottom. I have no idea if these things work well on 1.2 volt batteries, which are common rechargeable batteries. We'll see that later. But in theory, you're using single-use batteries or maybe a nickel metal hydride rechargeable battery in these things. And you're kind of stuck unless you want to really retrofit this thing into using that battery. So not a lot of choices on the battery you're going to use with this robot. Unless you really want to go to town on it. But if you're doing something like this is a little small, fun, custom thing, you have a lot more options about the battery you're going to use. And in this case, I use like a little LiPo battery. It's got a little XT. I think this is an XT 15 or 30 plug. I don't remember the plug. Doesn't matter. But you have more options on what batteries you use depending on your robot. So size, it certainly can make a big factor, and we'll look at more of that in a second. Cost, right? I'm not particularly rich. Maybe some of you are more wealthy than me, but cost is a consideration sometimes. Environmental and usage, right? Like how much is the load? Does it have to operate very cold, right? Some batteries don't operate so well in the cold. Weight and capacity, right? Again, can you use the big old sealed lead acid battery? It's 5.5 pounds right there. If you're in a competition for the Robotics Society, weight might have a very serious impact on your decision. And same with current, right? Like how much current and what is the ability for it to deliver. Talk about that a little bit, but I got to get through some definitions. I'm sure I did not add all the definitions that we need, but I added some that are important here. So definitions, voltage, right? If you think of voltage and current and power as an energy period, just as water flowing through a pipe. You've probably seen this image before on the internet before, but voltage is like the pressure of water in a water pipe, the actual pressure of it, where current is the actual amount of electrons flowing. So you can have a really thin pipe and a lot of pressure or voltage, but not a lot of actual water delivery, which is, you consider the total amount of water. Or the actual flow, the amount of the current. And then power is it's actually pi. It's voltage times amps, right? Equals how much power, how much actual work you're getting done. The next thing I have here, and I'll say C a number of times. And I'll tell you, there's 3 different definitions I found everywhere on the internet. I don't know who governs what C means, but you'll see it labeled capability, which I've always called it. You'll see it as current, and then I can't remember the other one. I think I run into it somewhere here on here, but you'll see C a number of times. Might as well just, did I say that? Yeah, actually I did. I think I brought it up. C, I'm just going to tell you right now. I was going to save it for later, but there are batteries with C ratings. Not every battery has a C rating, but every battery that's reputable will give you a figure for how much current it can provide. So I'm holding a little 1.2 volt nickel metal hydride battery. It's just a little Amazon Basics battery in my hand. And on it says 1.2 volts, 2400 milliamp hours. So it's telling me voltage and current. 2.4 amp hours or 2400 milliamp hours. Most batteries that don't have a C rating on them are 1C discharge, or at least that's roughly where their rating comes from. And right here, I guess the thing I want you to take away from this, and I'm going to drop this in I recommend you take a look at this entire thing. I don't think C is for Coulomb, because C has everything to do with how fast you can charge and discharge a battery. So if you have a battery that is rated for 1 amp and it's a 10C battery, you can discharge 10 amp hours out of it. Now that battery, instead of lasting, its rating is usually rated for 1 hour. So if I'll grab this battery here, it's 5,000 milliamp hours. This can, in theory, discharge 5,000 milliamp hours for 1 hour. But it has a C of 70C. That means it can actually deliver a discharge 70 times that rating. Now, it's not going to last for very long because this has, a finite amount of energy in it, but you could discharge a whole lot of current out of this battery really quickly. And the amount of battery, you can't pick your battery as the first thing you're doing in robotics. I could talk about that a little bit actually in a second, so I'm going to hold on. I'll go back to, before I get too far ahead of myself, the rest of the conversation. BMS, I might say that a couple times. It's a battery management system. I think battery management systems, I don't always put one on, but I think they are very important to robotics. They can help you charging. They can give you like a fuel gauge of sorts. They help make sure that you don't over discharge your batteries and ruin them or cause them to go to thermal over a runaway, which is where you've seen those videos of batteries lighting on fire, and they're not easy to put out. You're usually trying to remove them with metal tongs and chucking them out on concrete. Watt hours per kilogram. So that's a rating that I'm gonna compare the batteries against. That's how many watts per hour they can deliver per kilogram. And then cycles, that's a number of charge discharge cycles that your rechargeable battery can provide you. So into considerations, when I'm thinking about robotics, these are the considerations that I make when I'm deciding what the battery is going to be. I first have to decide what the weight of the robot's going to be roughly, what the drive system's going to be, like what voltage can my motors handle, what kind of voltage do I want them to, what kind of current is the motor driver pull, how long is my robot going to last. But a lot of those things break out into these items here. Cell voltage. So if I have, my requirement is 1.5 volts, and I know that there's some sort of cutoff circuit, the 1.2 volt battery isn't going to cut it. Same thing with, 9 or 12 volts. Sometimes I get a little worried when I see motor drivers that say 12 volts or like 13.8 volts max. But then you go and you look at a battery like this, and it's, it's when it's charged, it's 14.8 volts. And you say, is that close enough? Maybe not worth trying. Specific energy, which I'll define in a moment. Cost is really important to me. When I was doing PopBot, I don't know, two or three, I'm not sure, it's PopCan Challenge Robot. I was using these packs, and this is a battery pack where you can stick 5 batteries in each side. They're 1.2 volts each because these are nickel metal hydride batteries. I think this pack right here cost me, I think I had 2 of these and it cost me $65. That was a lot more money. And the reason I picked these is weight. I had the first iteration of the PopCan Challenge, the robot weight maximum was 25 pounds. Well, I was using originally in the first version, this 5.5 pound sealed lead acid battery. Well, not this one, but same thing. This is a 12 volt, 7 amp hour battery, right? And it worked just fine for the version 1, but I was right at 24 pounds and I needed to put more things on it. So I was looking for a lighter battery solution, and all in, these things were less than a pound for essentially not quite the same power. I didn't need as much power for the entire run because the runs are 5 minutes each, and I could charge batteries in between. So the cost, it was a lot more costly because I think I could get these for $25, and these things I think ended up being $65. Well, if $65 out of your budget, this probably wouldn't have been a great solution for you. Number of recharge cycles. There's some batteries, I'll go over recharge cycles in a second, but some batteries you can only charge 300 times. In a competition robot, that's probably not that big of a deal. But if it's something that's more, if it's like your robot vacuum, you know, 300 cycles might be less than a year because it's recharging every night. So that probably wouldn't be a good battery to use if its lifespan was 300 cycles. Temp range, again, you know, if you're doing something that's like going to go underwater, it can, you know, can get pretty cold, run close to 0°C down there, or in the snow. You need something that has extended ranges, or space even perhaps. So temperature range can be very important. Those LiPo batteries don't work so hot if they get very cold or very hot. Very hot's actually a lot worse. Disposal, I talk about that a little bit in a second. I'll just talk about it now, but that's important, right? Some batteries, I mean, no battery should go straight into the garbage, but some batteries are just an easy drop off, or like the SLA batteries you can drop off right at Interstate Batteries for free. Some you're paying to dispose of. Charge rate, you know, if you're running a competition for the, you know, Robothon or something like that, and you have to charge a battery between runs, you want something that's going to charge fast. You know, some of these batteries, these nickel metal hydride batteries, I think these things took 20 hours to recharge. So I had to have the batteries I needed to change out during competition. If the battery, if it's like one of those robot vacuums, you know, 8 hours for recharge time, that's fine. So that's a consideration. Discharge rate, same thing. Like, you know, how much power can I pull it out? Because a lot of robots have motors, so, and they discharge the appropriate amount of current safely in the amount of time that you need to do some work. Battery holding and mounting. There's some batteries, you know, they've got like this is a, you know, they've got kind of a custom mount sort of thing where you're like dropping it in here. Well, this is a little bit nicer for removal than trying to dig out something with more of a sensitive connector, like the 9-volt battery snap that sits on here where you're prying it off, and, you know, you pull it off about 20 or 30 times, you might be resoldering a wire. Life expectancy, we talked about that a little bit. I have a chart on some of that. Life expectancy, I have the chart I show you, and I'll just say it now, is if you are properly caring for your batteries, heat, excessive discharge, over discharging, not charging enough. There's a lot of things and a lot of that can affect batteries based on their chemistry. So life expectancy can change wildly based on charging, discharging. This battery here, you know, this one I think is rated for 10 years, but this thing will be gone in a year if you let it sit too hot. 10 years might be a stretch on that particular battery. 7 or 8 is probably fine. You know, of course, as they get older, they can't provide you the same power. That's pretty much universal. Charging complexity. Some batteries, you know, well, if it's not rechargeable, it's really easy because, you know, you just pull them out and throw them away. But some batteries require something as easy as, like, you know, this little, you know, recharging doodad where you just put the 4 batteries in and the light turns on. That's all fine, easy peasy. Other batteries where you have the, you know, the little power brick type batteries, you plug it into the USB socket. Hey, no problem. That's super easy. Got a little power gauge on there. But then sometimes you're digging into the battery chargers that are like this, or ones that look more like small, the type of battery charger you'd use on like your car, where, you know, you've got cables and then you've got these, you know, load cell adapters, right? So it's like a 4C or 4S battery, so you got to plug it into here so it can properly charge the different cell strings. So charging complexity, do you want it to be charged, you know, on board, or are you able to pull that battery out? BMS availability, that's a battery management system. Not every robot I have has BMS, certainly not most for sure. But BMS is battery management system, and BMS comes in kind of 2 flavors. One, I mean, there's a lot, but BMS, I categorize them in 2 flavors. One, I have BMS where it's just it's a device to help make sure you don't overcharge certain strings before others. So it helps balance the charging voltage across the strings. A lot of batteries are very sensitive to overcharging, but not all batteries charge at the same rate. So if you're putting 12 volts into a battery string, like this power brick here, it's got a couple different strings in there. You want to make sure that you don't overcharge one string while you're undercharging another, so the BMS system will turn off strings when they're charged and turn on other ones, and the complexity varies. But fuel gauge, or yeah, I didn't explain. The other one is this kind, and I'll talk about it a little bit more, where it's a bit smarter, and it can sit there and figure out your fuel gauge, right? It can determine like where are you at, what's your percent of charge, what's your at the current rate, how much charge do you have left, that sort of thing. General safety, you go and look at your AA battery. Probably not a lot of videos on Amazon of these things lighting off, but you can find a whole plethora of videos of people, lighting these lithium batteries on fire. So there's a very real safety component that you have to make a consideration for, especially where is your battery going to be. Availability. If you were to say run all your robot on these nickel metal hydride batteries, you get them on Amazon. I can probably get 50 of these things later on today from Amazon. Where if I want to buy a specialty robot battery like this molded battery, I might be waiting weeks. So it's important sometimes. Pre-made versus custom. Custom, there's a lot of interesting looking custom batteries out there. People 18650 cells. But if you're looking for easy and not hard, you don't want to spend a lot of time on your battery, you're probably looking for something pre-made. And of course, weight and size, right? If you have a quadcopter, you need to work with a low weight battery that can provide you a lot of current really, really fast. So just a couple of quick things, couple quick definitions. I'm not reiterating every single one of these, and we're almost done with slides. But cell voltage, as I'd mentioned, cell voltage varies. They usually give you cell voltage at a nominal voltage, but there's a difference between nominal voltage and charge voltage. On LiPos, for instance, the nominal voltage is 3.7 volts. You might find some different chemistries are 3.6, but the charge voltage is 4.2. I urge you to be, I say this elsewhere, but I'll say it more than once. I urge you to be very careful about the chargers that you use and the batteries you choose. There's well over, I found 24 different lithium chemistries out there. I'll grab this. And for instance, this is just adafruit.com, right? And you can just plug in like lithium batteries, and they have different lithium ion or lithium ion polymer batteries. So here's a lithium or lipo or lipoly. Their chargers vary in voltage, and some of them can support 2 different types of batteries. Some of them are only one. So you see these lithium ion batteries are different than lithium polymer batteries. While they're close, they're not exactly the same thing. And you have to be careful about the type of charger you get. Does it do one or not the other? Because if it puts out 4.35 volts, it could be, it might not kill your battery, but it's going to seriously cause it's going to cause it not to last as long as it should. It could cause a problem with lighting it on fire or whatever, but make sure you just don't go onto eBay and start buying chargers that don't match your batteries. And I try to buy my chargers with my batteries just so that I know they're matched. It's not always possible, but it is something to try to do. Specific energy. So I rate, I guess one of the most important ratings to me is the specific energy of a battery. And that is essentially, I'm telling you, I'm describing it as watt hours per kilogram. So how much power can it deliver per kilogram? And it's not the same thing as energy density, which is the volume of the battery. So I'm looking at, the weight for the gram, not the volume of the battery. You'll find a lot of good spec sheets do give you specific energy on batteries. And you'll find a lot of batteries. If you buy a cheap 18650 type battery like these batteries here, you'll see they vary widely in the amount of current that they can provide. And you'll feel some feel heavier than others. So even within the same battery chemistry and say type of battery, you'll find a wide range of exactly what it can provide. And in a moment, I'll show you my battery comparison, and I kind of have what I have found as like the rough range of what that battery chemistry type goes. So what their specific energy is. One thing I wanted to mention just before we go into to dive in a little bit deeper is the BMS. There are some batteries out there that have BMSs or actually battery diagnostics built in. So this battery right here, it's something that Greg and I had scored off of a buddy of ours. But they're a battery, and you know they got a built-in fuel gauge, kind of like the DeWalt battery or whatever for your charges. But it has a multi-pin connector here, and this battery has a smart battery system that communicates over SM bus. SM bus is something you'd find on a motherboard, perhaps for power. And I wrote a little Arduino, a little bit of Arduino code out there for you guys if that's something that you run into out there. But BMS's, the thing I like about the smart battery system is that I can pull down like what my percentage of charge is. So instead of just measuring voltage, you can't just put a multimeter on, especially lithium ion batteries, and say, oh, I'm 50% charge, because a good battery is meant to discharge pretty well flat throughout its available capacity. So the voltage in theory it drops quickly when you're initially using a battery, usually on this type of battery, 4.2 volts per cell down to 3.7. And it'll hover around that 3.7 volts for most of its available capacity before it quickly drops off. So it's hard to tell if the battery's 80% charged or 50% charged. Usually you can tell if it's fully charged or if it's done. And if that's fine, that's all you need. But if you're looking for how many minutes of available power do I have at this current given load rate, this battery will actually tell me through that system. So that's something to, if it's important to you, you might look for something with the SBS or build it into yourself. And I have some information there for you guys. And again, I'll share this so that you can go and follow those links yourself. I mentioned disposal because disposal is a really rough one for me. Past Chas doesn't appreciate future Chas sometimes. I've gotten some batteries like these batteries here, where you pick up the batteries and then all of a sudden you're done with them and you're like, oh, what in the world? You know, you can't just take them off and drop them somewhere. You can't throw them in the garbage. Shouldn't throw them in the garbage. But you can't drop them off interstate batteries either. The interstate battery, you know, just down the road from me, I can drop off a battery for free. But this battery, I have to go down to the Snohomish County Hazardous Waste Center and pay them money per pound to deliver this battery. So sometimes that free battery was not free; it cost you money. So I urge you to consider picking up free batteries because you don't know what you're getting yourself into sometimes there. And then the last thing, so peep at my power. I'm gonna switch over to this battery comparison chart. I'm gonna share it real quick so you guys can either follow along or use it later. Copy link. So I will give you a word of warning. This has been modified a number of times over a couple of years. It's mostly up to date. I tried to go through it the last day and make sure it's there. Not every single cell's filled out. And some of this is just opinion, right? Like why? That's my opinion. So it might have no impact on you. You might be able to find a battery on a great deal and the cost is different for you. Or, you might be able to find batteries for free, or you might find a better battery that's more expensive, whatever. All those different things are important, but your mileage will vary. So we'll start with all these battery technologies, and I've tested every single battery technology on this list with the exception of the lithium iron phosphate batteries. Those are kind of cool. They're nice, but they're too expensive for my blood, so I'm not going to go there yet. So the first one is, you know, like the propeller activity bot. If I can get away with it, I go with lithium metal hydride batteries. Actually, I guess I could read right off my list here. So in IMH batteries, 1.2 volts per cell, right? So sometimes that's a problem because if you put it into some consumer electronic device, it'll immediately tell you that it has a low battery because it's used to seeing 1.5 volts. I have on this list the cell voltage, the specific energy, so 70 to 100 watt hours per kilogram. Obviously, these aren't a kilogram, but you know, I just was normalizing. Recharge cycles of about 1,000. All the recharge cycles here are if you take average decent care of your batteries. Why temperature range, you know, pretty solid temperature range. Expected lifetime disposal. I found you can usually get rid of these for free at the transfer station, not going to the hazardous waste. It depends where you live. That just happens to be where the charge and discharge rate are pretty low. Or at least recommended, at least ones I have. These ones are Amazon Basics. So these are 0.1 C. That means this is a 2400 milliamp hour battery. That means I should charge and discharge at or lower than 240 milliamp hours, right? 1/10 of the rated capacity. BMS, no internal BMS. Readily available household chargers. Obviously, you wouldn't want to put this in something that was a pain in the butt to open up because you had to pop those batteries out or build a built-in charger. And then further down, I have some other notes. These ones are probably the worst batteries I have for self-discharging. They self-discharge 20% per month. So that's pretty rough. Thank you, Scott. I don't consider these to be of any safety kind of issue. Now I have the AA's up there, regular alkaline or zinc, whatever. There's a lot of different chemistries for alkaline batteries or AA batteries. Alkaline is one. There's some zinc, cadmium. I can't remember the chemistry of the old ones, but a lot of chemistries there anyways. So we're gonna skip those things. That's a 10-year shelf life, not an actual life. Lipos. So like I mentioned, I use these in Papa 0.2, and I did it because they were super lightweight. They're easy to source, very easy to get, and they worked out very well. Like I like them fine. I still use them. And their charger, I'd shown you guys this later, is just a little plug-in unit that plugs into the wall. Easy peasy, no problem. Really slow charge rate though, so you'd want to have a couple sets for a competition if you're doing competition. The next one is lipos or lithium polymer batteries. It's a common lithium type of battery. Their cell voltage is actually 3.7. I put 4.2 in there. 4.2 is charged. You know, you can see they have a better specific energy. You can get a little bit more power or a little bit less, depends. Sorry, a little bit more power per dollar buying power. 1.3 watts per dollar. They have not as good recharge cycles, but perhaps you don't care. I know there's more than 500, and I know they definitely last longer than 500, but from most of the manufacturers I got, that was their rating. So, of course, a lot of our household electronics have these things in them, and honestly, when they have these in them, they're designed to, to fail because usually you can't replace those batteries. The temp ranges on them is kind of terrible. Like around here, I guess we're usually okay, but you've all seen or probably seen people anyways put their camera in their pocket to keep it warm so that it stays running. Expected life, I don't really know why there's such a dramatic change between lifetime, but the manufacturing data I read was greater than 10 years. I have to pay a hazardous waste fee for these batteries to recharge. If somebody has a place to put them for free, let me know. Normally 1C charge and discharge. I'm sure that varies, but from what I've seen, that's about average. You can add on BMSs. Most of them have a small type of BMS. So like this one has a tiny little bit of a BMS in them. And really, this BMS is really only designed to make sure that this thing is being safely charged. Like it's charging the, well, this is 3.7 volts. So it's it's a single cell. It might be in parallel, but usually these are just made for like a LED indicator. Maybe they have a light fuel gauge sort of thing on them, but really it's just so that you're safely charging these things for the most part. Charging complexity, if you're trying to build your own circuit, it's pretty expensive, but you can actually pay pretty cheap dollars if you don't have to have a lot of charging current. Adafruit, SparkFun, a ton of, Amazon and eBay modules are out there where you can just have like a little GST connector on these and you charge them by USB. And essentially this charges the same thing that you'll find in those, it seems like everybody has a power bank these days, right? These USB power banks. And often this is what you find in these USB power banks. I actually used this in my 3rd gen robot. I used this power bank here. And I liked this power bank because it has like a battery indicator voltage on it, and it outputs 24 volts. So that was kind of a nice one. Sometimes you can find these where you can actually charge them with more than a USB. Still had USB power on it, but it put out 24 volts. And that was very handy because my motor driver needed at least 12 and could handle like 36. So it was perfect sort of thing, because you can just pop this one in and pop it out. And these charge well at 1C, which is a lot, 10 times faster than nickel metal hydride. So pretty slick. Other batteries, the lithium ion battery packs, you've seen, I don't know why they always put these things in blue heat shrink, but I've seen a lot of them in blue heat shrink, but they're usually batteries. Sometimes like the 18650s are lithium ion. Those are the things I think. I don't vape or anything, but these things tend to be relatively cheap. That's a rough term, but a lot of these batteries come like this, and you'll see on this list, they cost a little bit more money. You're paying a little bit more of a premium for these batteries for, I guess, a little bit better density. It depends on the chemistry. There's a lot of different types of lithium ion batteries out there, but maybe a little bit more charges. They're very common. They don't last as long. And same thing on the discharge rates, same thing on the chargers. And this is where I really urge you to do your homework on making sure that you're buying the right charger. I'm not talking about those. What's next? SLA batteries or AGMs, that's sealed lead acid, or what's glass mat? I can't remember what he is. Yeah, but anyways, it's they're both type of lead acid battery, kind of a variant on your car battery or motorcycle battery. So these are actually fairly affordable, and you can usually get them used. If they were misabused, you might be having to take them down to the interstate and hand them over. You can tell that they're really abused if they have some bubbling on these things. They usually bubble out like this, or crack even after a while. I used to be able to pick these up from some guys that did fire alarm checkouts, because they'd replace these every other year to every 3rd year. And these things would always last me 6 or 7 years. So I was able to give these away for free at a time. I liked these batteries. The problem with them is they are extremely heavy. Like, look at that, 35 to 40 watt hours per kilogram, but they are also very cheap. So if I think we were talking Thursday, if you're doing like a boat project where you don't care about the weight, it's ballast, you already needed ballast, this is the battery for you. They're super cheap, they're easy to find. They have pretty decent temperature ratings. 5 to 12 years if you take care of them. Drop off is, I've never paid to drop off one of these batteries. The discharge rate, because they're so big and they have like the capacity to deliver, the charge discharge rate isn't too bad. I've never really seen a BMS other than over discharge voltage. Like it's just like a turn off on like once you hit a certain voltage. So like many other batteries, you can't over discharge them, or you basically kill the battery, or at least severely limit its lifetime. The lithium iron phosphate batteries, I can't speak a lot about. They are very well, did I do that backwards? The math backwards on that one. The lithium iron phosphate batteries, I can appreciate. Like I played around with some friends. It is amazing. Like you can get these in. I think Greg's robot runs on a lithium iron phosphate battery. They are so much cheaper. Like, what is your battery, Greg, if you don't mind? Is it like a pound for the same essentially format? So this is a 5.5 pound. You're muted.
I think it's roughly half or a little over half of what the SLA was in my case.
Well, that would that would look about right here. If you get the bigger batteries, they have full size batteries for, like, you see these van lifers and campers and stuff like that. You pick up some advantage on your watt hours per kilogram in the bigger ones. They have really great recharge cycles. They're super light. They are very deep discharge. They're just extremely expensive, right? And they're also hard to get rid of. So they almost always have BMSs in them for some reason. I don't know why, but a lot of them, unfortunately, are Bluetooth on the bigger ones. And a Bluetooth BMS doesn't do me any favors. It's great for like the van lifer that has a cell phone, but hooking that up to a microcontroller might pose a challenge. I consider those not particularly dangerous, but I could be a fool. I think it's just because they all have those integrated BMSs for the most part, so they're fairly safe. I probably should have outlined that. I feel like pretty much every lithium battery is inherently unsafe. I still use them. You just have to really watch your charge and discharge rates and how hot you allow them to get, and making sure they can't be punctured. Nickel cadmium, everybody remembers NiCads, right? They're still out there because they have very low discharge very low temperature ratings. So they're not great. They have memory. They do have decent like discharge rates. You saw them in all the old cordless drills out there. And they're fairly easy to work with, but still just an old battery technology and kind of crappy specific energy ratings. But they're still out there if you need something that works in extremely cold weather. The last one I have is graphene. Graphene is it belonged up in the lithium ion area. It was just the last battery I happened to add. And that battery is essentially, it's a lithium ion technology battery. And I use these for my actually I ran this battery here in PopBot during the last one, not because I needed the discharge, but it's just a convenient form factor. This is a graphene battery. This is another one. I run them in RC boats where I'm pulling 50C easy. That's, I'm pulling like 100 amps of current out of these things sometimes, plus maybe 80 amps. So this is a 100C battery. So if you need something that has a huge amount of current draw and startup, these batteries are where we're at. They're some of the best discharge ratings. They're very expensive though. So they have extremely fast charge and recharge rate, but they get very hot, like unnervingly warm. I'll say that. And some of them are even designed to expand a little bit the first time you use them. And for anybody that's a little worried about lithium batteries taking off, that's an unsettling feeling. I'll tell you that. They do have pretty good terrible temperature ratings, pretty good life expectancy. It's hazardous waste. I've seen over 100C discharge. So if you need to weld with something, this is your battery. That is it. And I'm kind of getting close. So I wanted to stop now and address any questions, or have anybody feel free to provide their opinions and any feedback.
You want to briefly fill people in on when when we shop for some of these batteries, you'll see 2S4P.
Yeah, that's a good question. So 2S4P has to do with how the battery strings, the cells, are wired together. So 2S means there's 2 strings that are in series. So if there are 3.7 volt strings, it's 2 of those. So it's 3.7 times 2, right? That's your battery voltage then. For instance, this one is a 4S battery. Sometimes they don't tell you the P's, which are parallel battery strings. This one's 4S. That means it's 4 strings of 3.7 volt batteries because of the battery chemistry, which means it's a 14.8 volt battery. There's also batteries like these Roaring Top brands for the RC communities, or if you just need a lot of current. Like I'm a big fan of, if you can, go higher with your number of series cells, because voltage is higher, but the current is lower for the same type. And you'll see a lot of batteries that can handle that 40 volts or even 60 volts. So if I'm picking a motor driver, if I can get away with that, I can go smaller wiring. And I usually smaller wires and less current is usually cheaper. Not always, but it's certainly a lot easier to work with. So like the 6S batteries, you're looking at 22.2 volts there. And I've seen all the way up to 16S before. Some of those are custom built, but you can readily buy 6S batteries. But so the S means how many batteries in series, the P's the number of strings that are in parallel. So good question.
But when you go to charge that 6S battery,
yeah,
wouldn't you need a more expensive charger that can handle because you charge each cell independently, correct?
Well, yeah, the strings. So yeah, sorry, the parallel strings. So you are correct. You charge each cell. It depends on the battery, the BMS. Some BMSs only charge the string, so it doesn't measure. Most of them do that, yeah. Or they'll charge everything in parallel, but they measure the voltages of the series strings. It depends how much you spend. But to your point, yes, if you spend a lot of money, like over $100, over $200 on a battery charger to charge these things, they measure the actual cell voltages themselves. So this charger is meant to charge up to a 6S battery. And so it has little wires that go to these little connectors that'll measure the individual battery voltages as it charges. And it does that to make sure it doesn't overcharge a cell, because if you put as little as the difference between 4.2 volts and 4.35 volts can completely destroy a cell, or I mean, a little bit more than that, you could catch the cell on fire. So don't cheap out on your battery chargers if you're dealing with these high capacity batteries. You gotta, unfortunately, invest in something pretty decent. This one's a high-tech charger. I think it cost me like, I don't remember anymore, $150 or something like that.
So that's for use with those battery bricks.
Yeah.
And I assume they do not have a BMS in them.
Nope.
But they have 2 sets of wires coming out. They have the power wires and then the smaller balanced charging wires.
Correct. Yeah. So they have a power wire. The nerve-wracking thing about these things, you got to make a choice, and when you're buying them, consider the plug that you're plugging into, because if you decide to change this plug out, there's no like fuse here. You're changing this, plug out hot. You're going to solder it in hot, and if you get some stray wires, you're going to start welding, right? And potentially cause this thing to go into thermal overload.
Or if you solder the wires in backwards,
also really rough. That's a bad day for you. So I usually buy my batteries with the correct plug if I can. If I can't, these adapters are not rated for this. I will tell you that. I have melted these down. But in this case, I knew PopBot wasn't going to draw anything more than about 1C. So I did go ahead and use this XT90C. It went from XT90 to XT30. That's just a battery connector type. So I use this adapter. But yeah, this is the actual current delivering harness, the wire. So this delivers current to whatever my load is. And then to your point, yes, Greg, this is my charge balancing cable that I'd have to plug into the external adapter on my charger. Again, making it a lot more complex for charging, but where else are you going to get this kind of discharge capacity?
So the batteries that I use in Gidget, they're the 12, they describe them as 12-volt batteries, replacements for SLAs, because they have the same form factor as a small SLA battery, same 12 volts. Now we know it's not really 12 volts because it's 3.7 or 3.6 times some whole number.
Yeah.
So it's got a BMS in it. So it's managing the charging. What I'm curious about is, even though it's got this BMS in it, which presumably is managing all the charging that's going on, my understanding is I can't just hook it up to a 14-volt charger. I have to hook it up to a battery charger.
Yeah.
Which itself has circuitry in it that says, oh, the battery's charged, so I'm going to cut back on the current and go to a trickle current.
Yeah, like your phones now, right? Like you'll notice your iPhone, the last 5% or whatever, will take you 4 hours to charge, where it'll charge right up to 95% super quick, because they have the built-in BMS. You are absolutely right. Matter of fact, the interesting thing about those LiFePO4 batteries is you can't just take that battery and you shouldn't take that battery in many cases and just drop it into an SLA, situation. For instance, we'll take the car situation, right? If you take that LiFePO4 battery and drop it into a car, the life version of this battery is lighter, but its charge voltage and its nominal voltage are higher than an SLA battery. So you will never charge that thing up to 100%. Plus, some battery charges have this like desulfate. I don't remember the exact words, but it's a cycle that like knocks off some oxidization within the battery plates of this thing. Desulfate. I can't even say the word, but that is terrible for those LiFePO4 batteries as well. So if you have a charger that's just meant for SLA batteries, and if it has a switch that can enable and disable that feature, you should definitely disable it. But you'll have to know that those things usually can only charge those LiFePO4 batteries up to like 80 or 90% tops, just because it's not going to put out the voltage that's needed to charge your battery. So kind of need a specific battery charger for your application. All right, let's see. Absorb class mat. Thank you, Steve. That's the AGM battery. I knew it was glass. I can't remember what the A was. I always go to acid. But, instead of charging a fee at the disposal area, it'd be better if they put a deposit on batteries. You're absolutely right, Colin. I kind of wish they would. I think the problem is trying to collect that, because a lot of the batteries come in overseas and they go right through customs.
Right.
I like that one. I wish it was easier to dispose these, because I'll be honest with you, I mean, I don't want to believe it, but I probably believe most of these batteries, particularly the power banks, right? I want to believe most people are doing the right things, but you got to know tons of these things are going to the landfill when there's a lot of valuable materials in there that could be recycled in theory, right?
Did you talk? I know you talked about the drop-in replacements for the SLAs. Mm-hmm. And there's an iron. Let's see. I think they call it a. It's got iron in it.
Lithium iron phosphate.
Yeah, which acts as I understand it, that acts as a kind of a. It counteracts the potential of the battery to go into thermal overload.
That was my understanding too.
Yeah, it's like as the battery gets warmer, its internal resistance goes up, which reduces the amount of energy that the thing will deliver. And so it's sort of a self-correcting thing. Whereas lithium batteries, there's definitely that danger of once they reach a certain temperature, there's no stopping it. It's going to explode. You know, it's going to burst into flames. And yeah.
So I haven't used those batteries myself. They're usually expensive for the application I want, and I'm not constrained by using the battery. They're cool, and I understand why people do it. I have been considering buying one for my camper because it's a lot of weight dropped. But if I was like in Greg's position, Greg picked it for all the best reasons, right? He had to drop a bunch of weight off Gidget, and he could get the same battery in the same format for half the weight, which is great. Yeah, James, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious, just overall, like round figures for doing robotics and for what we all are primarily doing. What's your favorite battery, or did you say and I just missed it?
No, I didn't say, but on purpose. I'll be honest with you. I like these LiPo batteries. I mean, you have to watch it.
Was there an F in the middle of that, or did you say LiPo or LifePo?
Oh, I like the LiPo. The
LiPo, just the standard old LiPo battery.
Just a standard old LiPo battery. Yeah, these lithium polymer batteries, and I like them because they have a ton of current to deliver when you need them. They charge really fast, and I'm usually doing like pop can challenge, so I want something that can charge up really quickly because we only have it's a max of 30 minutes, but it's really more like 15. And I actually don't even need that because for the weight of this battery, which is nothing, it's sub-pound, I can run the entire day, all the practice and everything on this battery right here, which is sub-pound when I used to run 5.5 pounds with this monster, and it'd take 8 hours to charge. So it's just,
and they're not super expensive, so you can always just get a second one and have it charged and swap them out.
Yep, I agree.
Curious with the two of them.
Yeah.
So I mean, really, when it comes right down to it, I guess they're a little bit more dangerous than the LiFPO. You have to be a little bit more careful with them, and they may not last quite as long as the LiFPO, right?
Yeah, correct.
But other than that, they're just great.
I think they're fine as long as you're safe. I transport mine in those fireproof bags in a sealed container. Like I have a rolling box with me, so it's in a container that's not pushing something up against it, potentially puncturing the battery. That's puncturing.
Yeah,
the battery is a quick way to catch it on fire.
Can I just say those fireproof bags are not 100% fireproof?
I'm 100% sure they're not.
They certainly help, but I have personal experience with those. They do. I mean, they I think what they are primarily good for is that they direct all the fire in sort of one direction.
Yeah.
Out one end of the bag or out whatever end of the bag ruptures if you actually get silly enough to seal them. But so it's good to hear that you're putting it in something safe.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I try.
Pay attention to the safety. Yeah. Make sure you get a really good charger that really matches the battery so that you're not overcharging and you're not going to have problems, and then just go with LiPos.
Yeah. That's what works for me.
Yeah. Okay. One last question, Chaz. Do you know, it might be good to add a column to your chart here for this as well. I believe different chemistries are best stored long-term at different states of charge. Right? Cool. I mean, my understanding, as we were alluding to before you started your presentation, some of the lithium chemistries, you don't want to store them at 100%.
Right. You're right.
Right? You want to discharge them to a certain degree to store them. On the other hand, I believe some of the other chemistries, I don't know if it's nickel metal or nickel cadmium, you don't want to let them discharge too far, right? You should charge them every once in a while. Otherwise, they'll self-discharge too far, and then you're, out of luck.
Yeah, you're right. That was a miss. You're right. Like the nickel metal hydrides, they already self-discharge really quickly, so you leave them at 100%. The chargers, like the decent chargers, they actually have a built-in discharge or storage function on them. Where you're right. At the end of the day, you run it through the charger, and it'll put it in the right storage state, which is, a partial discharge. So you're absolutely right. That was a miss and something that people should take in consideration too, because it's more time at the end of the day for discharging your batteries. Now I usually leave my batteries until like the weekend or whatever, and then I'll discharge them because I don't want, I'm trying to leave the challenge. I don't want to sit there and discharge my batteries, and I haven't had a problem doing that yet, but I'm sure doing it right away is probably a better thing, particularly if you're a procrastinator. Good point, Greg. Thanks. I'm gonna modify those and add that in.
So then my follow-up question is basically, if you're going to go with lipos, we hear that, storage state is important. What else is important for extending the life of those batteries?
Temperature, they're very sensitive to high temperatures. Like you see this one here, it can only go up to 27. This is all in Celsius. It can only go up to 27 degrees Celsius to keep it healthy. That's not that warm if it's in an enclosed space or next to your motor driver. Keeping it at a cool temperature is very important to extending their lives. 35 for the normal type batteries, but still 35 degrees Celsius, that's pretty warm for us, but not really that warm for electronics or anything sitting next to a motor driver, right?
Yeah, so that's for the lipos, that's 90, what is that, 95 degrees Fahrenheit, freedom units?
Yeah. Oh, 90 something off freedom units, yeah. Like
That's one cat body temperature. Because we'll do anything to avoid using metric, right?
Yes, 95 degrees. Yeah, anything to do. I'll tell you guys wholeheartedly, I am trying to do the switch. My truck is in Celsius. Like everything I design now is in metric. I'm trying, and everything you buy now, especially for robots, is all in metric, right? Like the hardware you get, the whatever, all the design stuff. If you're looking at designs, like everything's in metric. So I'm with you, trying to lead the charge to go to metric.
The only reason I don't use metric completely is because of the cost of screws and nuts and bolts. Metric nuts and bolts and screws are probably 2, 3, 4 times the cost of standard.
Well, you say that at Lowe's they are. And it's hardware, but if you buy in bulk from like eBay or Amazon, it seems like it's cheaper for me to buy in metric.
Yeah, so if I'm buying a bunch of stuff, I usually go to Tacoma Screw.
Oh, okay.
And their prices are reasonable.
Yeah,
but if I'm just buying 1 or 2 or 3, yeah, man, it's crazy.
You're not wrong. That's for sure.
Just buy everything on the company account at MasterCard. That's
yeah.
There you go.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't. Somebody at work might hear this. I posted a link to a little thing that I found is really handy that somebody told me, and I wanted to pass on about using metric. So a meter is about your nose to your finger, and then 1/10 of a meter is about 4 inches, or about the length of your finger. 100th of a meter or a centimeter is about the width of your little finger, and a millimeter is about the thickness of a fingernail. So if you go from nose to finger, length of a finger, width of your little finger, and the thickness of your fingernail is a good way of like remembering what all the different metric sizes are.
Pretty smart.
So when it comes to excuse me, when it comes to batteries, I'm building a kind of humanoid size robot, and I've just been using a car battery because I need the weight in addition to the power.
Yeah, I mean, it's free ballast, right?
Yep,
And
that's
it's
right.
very cheap. I agree. There's definitely some great reason that those things still survive. They have great temperature ranges, right? So it can go out when it's snowy out. You don't have to worry about keeping the battery warm. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I need to wait for doing things like opening doors and refrigerators and blah, blah, blah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why I told you there was no right answer to batteries on this one. I
Yep.
think everybody's robot will dictate what battery is best for them. So, terrible battery for a Roomba, but
Oh,
pretty great.
absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for the questions, everybody. Hopefully you got something out of that, and nothing else, you got a link.
All right, thank you, Chas. That was pretty interesting. Yeah, you did teach us a thing or two.
Hopefully.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whatever time zone you're in. And we have any other parting comments or questions or anything else that's just burning a hole?
Nice work there, Chas. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And yeah, just go ahead and post. You can just post a link to the your Google Slides file there, and then we can just I can just link to that. If you put that in the chat, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll do that.
He did actually.
Oh, did he? Okay. Okay.
Oh.
I haven't gone back and studied it. I mean, I'll look at all this stuff. I kind of go through if things get posted in there more than once, the same thing, I'll usually take the duplicate out when I do the post. So
I also linked it into mine. I have a page about batteries, but it's sadly out of date. And so I linked to Chas's, and then I have to go back and look through Chas's and update my page.
okay. All right. All right.
Another wonderful meeting, guys. Later on.
Yeah. All right.
Take care.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Do we have a quorum to continue a discussion here, or does everybody have a yard work to get to? Because if I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and we'll see you all next month.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. Yeah, that was a really nice
Okay.
website that you dropped in there. I like that, James.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, all.